I know that you probably heard this last night and probably earlier this morning. This is a call to order that comes from the Akan tradition from Ghana. It is a tree calling. Our goal is to call your attention to something. Ame, when you answer Ame, indicates that you are hearing this call. So whenever you hear this at the convention, you'll know Akbar, and you will say, okay. I am very, very happy to present two of not just my mentors. I suspect that these are two mentors to the organization, to Africans everywhere. These two gentlemen, these two scholars, these two brothers, these two friends, these two teachers, these two fathers are truly, truly indicative of the best and the brightest that Africa has to offer us. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time with introductions because I think you know who they are, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But to my far right, brother Naeem Akbar, who is professor at Florida State University, and also is the owner, proprietor, manager of Mind Productions, Inc., Tallahassee. And to my near right is brother Professor Wade Nobles, who is the professor at San Francisco State University in Department of Black Studies, and is also the director of the Institute for the Advanced Study of Family Life and Culture, which I am proud to be a board member of. So without any further ado, this is going to be a conversation and deep thought, deep thought. Let me present my brothers, my friends, my teachers, Naeem and Wade.
Thank you. Hotep. Wade and I, we're sort of laughing because we've been really kind of hanging out together for about 35 years. Actually, he has been around since the inception of ABPsi, 37 years. I came along a couple of years later, even though he declares I'm his elder. It gets to be kind of meaningless in terms of who is the elder in that regard. He certainly has been, at ABPsi since its inception. But what we thought we would try to do is to have publicly a kind of a review of a conversation we've been having for the course of these last 35 years. And it was kind of a decision we came to over the last, I guess probably about 3 years ago, we talked about doing this, when we decided that even though we had a whole history and context of this thinking about what African psychology really is all about, we realized that the years had sort of slipped by. And as the brother mentioned this morning in the earlier session, that most of you in this room were not even born 37 years ago. And that kind of shocking reality, which hit us 2 or 3 years ago, it's also made it very clear that even though many of you have picked up on, have developed your ideas and research and theory and thinking about psychology, even many of you have even claimed the titles as African psychology as your own. We realized that there were very, very few of you who had the entire longevity of this conversation as a part of your experience. Years and years ago, it was kind of like an annual event that we would do a kind of a group presentation, we being Saeed Khatib, Cedric Clark, Phil McGee, Wade, and myself, as a part of this kind of conversation that we did publicly. It's been a number of years since we've done that, So the consequence is that many of you are not even aware of where this kind of thinking came from. And except for having read some of Wade's writings and my writings, you really don't have a real feel for what we were thinking about when we started thinking about these things. So that kind of stimulated us to say, okay, well, there's really no central location where you can find the works that we have done written in this whole area of so-called African psychology that we're going to talk about this morning. And we decided at that time, okay, well, we need to put together a collection of our papers. They've been published in journals and magazines and in other books and reprinted here, reprinted there. But there's no body of information which kind of identifies the writings that Wade has done in African psychology and writings that I've done in African psychology as well. So we decided we would engage in trying to pull that together. Well, as you'll hear about in a few minutes, we're still trying to get it together. I got one of these publications out about, I guess about a year and a half ago, and the other one just came out this morning. You have to hear the story about that. But we decided that as the consummation of that whole process, that we would this year kind of share with ABPsi, our family here, something about the thinking and the thoughts we've had along those lines. And so that's why we're here. And that's the purpose of this discussion that we want to share with you this morning, to give you a chance to kind of interact with us as we kind of interact with each other around trying to just identify and define what this whole process has been about. Because the interesting thing and the important thing about what African psychology is that it is a process. It's not a specific location. It isn't a set of specific ideas that you walk into, but it's been evolving. It's an evolution. It's an evolution that's been going on certainly for the last 35 years in our immediate experience, but also it's an ongoing process as well. And I think that it's very critical that we kind of share that. The other thing is that, we're really kind of getting old. And I mean, even though I hate to deny it, I have grandchildren, Wade has almost grown grandchildren, and I don't care how much you want to deny it, that means you're old, And old folks really we can stay around and look wise, but then our minds start dying out, our memories start slipping, faces you don't remember anymore, you forget your own name and where your room is in the hotel. And you realize that somehow you need to pass this work on. And we don't want to pass it on, we don't want it passed on with us without our knowing it's been passed on. So we want to have like a valid communication of what the mantle is. And that's a part of what we want to share as well. That's kind of my opening up. Wait, you want to open up something?
That was our opening up, I think.
Okay, that's our opening up.
It is sort of frightening to realize that when we began this, Naim and I are talking about, we've been walking together as sort of intellectual twins, and sometimes we would not see each other for a year or so, and we would reach the same sort of point in this discovery of ideas. And so we've been doing this for a long time, and it's been sort of fascinating. But then the more you think about it in sort of a deep way, we've just been guided. Like we're like two puppets being guided by the ancestors. And that is really, really true that with our discoveries and not discoveries, things have been put in our paths for us to pick up and to do something with. And that's been exciting. It's been frightening though to look up and realize that when we started out, sort of saying we're going to change the world and kick butt. I used to use another word, but people tell me that the elders didn't want to use that language. I'm trying to be elderly. We really thought we were going to, in a couple of days, solve this problem. We figured this out. And now we look back and it's like, 35 years and it became very important for Naim and I, as we said, probably somewhere in Africa 2 years ago, probably drinking palm wine, and probably reminiscing about our work, that we decided to put these two sort of anthologies together. And one of the reasons being that as this process that Naim talks about is evolving, that people pick up ideas and concepts and sometimes run with them without fully understanding what it is. And that as elders, one of our responsibilities is to leave a footprint that's clear enough for somebody to follow. And the nice part about this analogy is that in following a footstep, at some point you get to the place where your footstep and the footsteps you are following are paralleling each other, and then you get to a point where it's only your footsteps. And that's what we think, that very soon you all are going to move beyond what we've been laying out here in our footsteps. We're walking together now, but hopefully you'll get excited about this walk. And you'll plant some footsteps that the next generation of black psychologists will pick up and follow, or the next generation of whatever we call us, because I do believe that this term black psychology is going to become problematic for us real soon. And we can talk about that later. But the anthologies that we've created really is sort of our attempt at capturing our thinking in a way that people can then debate, struggle with, analyze, critique, realize that we were absolutely crazy when we wrote that, and that should be thrown in the ash can of history, or that there's something here that needs to be developed, and now that we just planted a seed, in 1983, we just planted it. Now we're old enough to be bold to really go into that. And we've talked about all kinds of things in our work, including this D. Phil McGee really started with sort of this psychobiology and looking at this whole question of melanin. We did that a long time ago and sort of let it go because we didn't have the technology. But now we got the technology. And we got the gene pool that's pretty much laid out, and we got genome projects going on, and we can pick up that thing. Wait a minute, let's go back and look at this again. Let's not put that away. Let's not forget that. And we start talking about these notions of consciousness and the spiritual connection between us, and that our bonding as African people, not just because we got melanin, but there's some ancestral spirit connection that really speaks and has a voice. We talked about that a while. Let's go back and look at that and talk about how do you do that? How do you, as psychologists, scientists, really do these things? How do we begin to reframe it? So these are kind of maps for our own work. Like, again, let me really be clear and declare that Naim and I are not dead. No, we are not finished. So while we're talking about this is just a point that there's going to be another 50 years, and we'll be part two maybe of these things, and we'll have in 50 years with you all being up here with us. But the fact of the matter is that there's a conversation going on about this thing called African psychology. And I'm very clear that we need to talk about African, and sort of the avoidance of the category African is part of our mental derangement, and that we need to work with that. I don't want anybody upset with me and say, well, let's debate. No. The fact of the matter is that part of the mental derangement and the destruction of African people was to disconnect us from the identity of being African. And it was more so in the diaspora than any place else in the world. I mean, it was premeditated, logically laid out, scientific. They strategized on us and they whipped our behinds in terms of our sense of who we are as human beings. And so we want to open this conversation with you all. This conversation. Dan and I love talking to each other, but we want you all to talk with us and to challenge us and to challenge yourselves, and hopefully I guess I make the point that the Third World Press in Chicago published this. This is my anthology. It's called Seeking the Saku, and the Saku is the illumination of the spirit. And after I sat down and thought about this, what my life's research has been about, my scholarship really has been seeking the illumination of what it is to be African. And so I've sort of entitled this Seeking of the Saku. But in Seeking the Saku, Third World Press decided that this was an important book for them to publish, and somehow we went from illumination to the shadows. And it's been a very difficult process of getting this hard copy in the hand. And at the point where the publishers had promised me that they would have copies at 8 o'clock this morning. Now, I'm not the kind of person that micromanages a lot, but I like to have stuff with me when I do something. And so at 8 o'clock this morning, I was really concerned that that it wasn't going to be here. And then the Belgian phone said, we got packages here for you. So I was all happy that the book's here. We can talk about it. And then when they brought it to me, they brought 5 copies of the book. And so I asked, why would a major publishing company send to a national conference of black psychologists its publication in black psychology and only send 5 copies? So I was outside just a while ago calling the press and talking to them, and the person, you know.
It's colored.
It's yeah. They do this because I was telling them they do this because we can't get out the race, and if we can get out the race, they probably the race should probably treat us better. We had options. We had no options. Yeah. And so so they told me the person didn't tell me you wanted more. I said, why would you send 5 copies to a conference of psychologists if you are concerned about just as an economic issue? You're concerned about selling your product. Why would you just send 5 copies? Well, they didn't tell me. Does the person sit beside you in the office? He said, yes. He said, well, he knew to send more than. So I said, well, you all can overnight something tomorrow. That would be good. At least we'll have something in the conference. So I'm giving you all a hollow promise that's dependent upon Third World Press that more of these will come. There's 5 here, and the 5 really have been committed to people. But I thought maybe since I do have these 10 grandchildren that Nan talks about, I could auction them and get a better price. Auction them, and get a better price, I can buy my grandchildren some shoes. Short of that, let's open the conversation on anything, anything that you know or don't know that we can talk about, not only with us, but with ourselves.
Can I, before we do, I'd like to actually read like the first couple of sentences out of the introduction to my anthology. And I found out that self-determination is the best control over resources, which is how Mind Productions came into existence. So Mind Productions was my response to the frustration of trying to deal with groups like Third World Press. And so I published my own and distributed my own. And had my copies sent from my office with me, by myself. And it just shows you the importance of that. Now, this is hard. I mean, this took a long time to do. A lot of sweat and tears, and it still isn't as pretty as his either. But it's still here. And, but the point of it is that all of this has been a lesson. This has been instruction. That if you're going to be involved in the process of self-definition, you really do need to control the resources of doing that. That's what ABPsi has evolved to being, and that's what I think that we have to, think about doing as well. But the first sentence of this introduction, I say, there will of course be those who will pick up this book and with incredulous curiosity ask, what is African psychology? My reply would be, African psychology is not a thing, but a place, a view, a perspective, a way of observing. African psychology does not claim to be an exclusive body of knowledge, though a body of knowledge has and will continue to be generated from this place. It is a perspective that is lodged in the historical primacy of the human view from the land that is known as Africa. It is not limited to a geographical place, neither a particular ethnicity, nor an identifiable ideology. It is the view that led to the very dawning of human consciousness, and it is the substratum of all that is uniquely human on this planet. It carries the vestiges of humanity's view from the infancy of our being. It is rooted in the prototype of the Nile Valley civilization and was probably spawned in the garden we know as the mythological Eden. African psychology is the perspective of the world's vestigial science, when its separation from mythology and religion was not yet even imagined. African psychology is the primal view of humanity's perception of her own humanity and the criteria that she etched into the foundation of civilized life on this planet. Now, that definition is a long way from where we started. In both Wade's anthology and mine, we both have the seminal article. And the seminal article in African psychology is Voodoo IQ, an introduction to African psychology, that was first published, I guess, 72? I think about 72. It was in the first edition of the Journal of Black Psychology. It was done by Third World Press and as a monograph, and it's been several other places as well. But it really sort of laid out the beginning thinking about this whole idea. And the whole evolution sort of began with a kind of deconstructionist point of view. That is that we clearly having had and received first-rate, top-notch, Euro-American PhDs in psychology. We got the best. I think Stanford and Michigan are unquestionably two of the best trainers for their people that exist on the planet. And so we got the kiss of approval from the best, most competent white folks in defining their psychology, that you're good boys, you've mastered this well, go out and call yourselves doctor with my blessing. So that means then that we weren't rhetorically, immaturely, just bitter because we couldn't learn their stuff. We got their stuff, we mastered their stuff, and we kicked their butt with their stuff. So that's where we began. So our concern was that what we had received was completely inadequate in terms of us being able to understand and to serve ourselves and our people. And therefore, our work began from a deconstructionist point of view. What is wrong with this stuff? What is the problem with this psychology that we find it unusable? And then as we began to move from that point, which has been the source of this, most of the work we've done, has been the reconstructionist process of trying to put back in place what we found out was actually in place, that is still in place, but has not been defined since the Ma'afa, which somehow has wiped out our memory. So this kind of idea of understanding African psychology as really a perspective is really a very critical aspect of it, because people have come to believe that African psychology is an outfit, or being black, or wearing an African and having an African name. That somehow it has gotten diminished to the most superficial accoutrements and probable accompaniments to being African, but it is not the essence of African. And so this whole notion of understanding African psychology as a perspective, a view, a way of understanding the world, a worldview, a perspective of not only how our minds work, but how our humanity works, is the whole course of this development. So that's
You want to keep making us talk, or you want to dialogue with us? Yes.
I was sitting here trying to grasp all of the things that I wanted to say before I said them, and I can't really do that. So bear with me for a minute. My impression about spending time with the two of you, is that you're really visionaries. And I've been impressed over the years with your vision, the evolution of your vision, which has occurred over time. And